Testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
Good evening. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for the City of Delafield on October 30th, 2024, opening at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
All right, Mayor Eicher.
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer.
Here.
Commissioner Hausman.
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Here.
Commissioner Kreinke.
Here.
Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
City Planner Amy Barrows.
Here.
Building Inspector Scott Hussinger.
Here.
And Commissioner Cahalan is excused.
Okay, moving on to item 4, looking for approval of minutes for the September 25th, 2024 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Mike abstains. Okay, minutes are approved. Item number 5, citizens' comments specific to items on the consent agenda, and those will be items 6A through D. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak to items on the consent agenda only? Okay, seeing none, citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda are now closed. So consent agenda,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? Okay, so if you're on the consent agenda, those are items 6A through D. That's 2574 Sun Valley Drive, Gary Stortz, Bionica Dental, you've been approved, 375 Williamstown, Suite 102, Peaceful Day Massage, you've been approved, 524 Milwaukee Street, Suite 207, Hendricks Commercial Properties, Game Day Men's Health Care Clinic, or Health Clinic, you've been approved, and 2846 Heritage Drive, Gridiron Power Solutions for permanent signage, you've been approved as well. So if you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome. If you would like to get on with your day, you're free to leave. Item 7, public hearings. We got 2 of them. Public hearing number 1 is text amendments to Chapter 52, City of Delafield zoning ordinance related to accessory structure size limitations. Amy, would you please give us a brief overview of this?
Sure. Okay, so Mr. Giles, he's in the audience, did submit an application. Plan Commission has considered this item at a few meetings recently. The request is coming following several meetings where Plan Commission discussed and the Common Council eventually did adopt city-initiated text amendments that did further restrict the size and number of accessory structures. So the applicant is requesting the text amendments to allow Plan Commission the ability to approve accessory structures larger than 1,200 square feet or 2.25% on lots larger than 53,333 square feet, rather than the current 3-acre allowance. So it would allow the larger structures with the smaller lot size compared to what the city had recently adopted. The threshold of 53,333 square feet was used. I don't know if it was clear from the last meeting because that is the square footage at which 2.25% equals 1,200 square feet. So then anything over 2.25% would be greater than that number. And then I guess that's all I have for a real quick introduction to the public hearing.
Mr. Giles, would you like to add anything to that, or you're going to be up here later to explain as well, but for the benefit of the public who'd like to speak, would you like to add anything? You can come up and speak if you'd like. That'd probably be a good idea. Why don't you just introduce yourself and you need a microphone, please. You need to press the bar, please, and introduce yourself.
Yes, I think that
I'm sorry, name and address. I know I
Okay.
already said your name, but
okay, is this my now presentation, so why should I do the whole thing? Or am I just doing a prelude?
this is a prelude for the public hearing part.
Okay.
So if you hear something in the public hearing, we'll give you a chance to kind of
Okay.
respond to that, and then we'll go on later on.
I think what I'd like to add, but I think Amy did a wonderful job as far as explaining what's been going on for the last several months. I would feel bad if I didn't have someplace to come on the last Wednesday of the month. I think the point is that I think there should be another category. And so we're not really changing the code. We're adding a category to the code so that when you have a larger size lot, you could build a larger size building. But the building still has to be within the 2.25%. So there's still a control on it, but the control is now not the 1,200 square feet, but the control becomes the percentage. And this is a percentage that has been chosen by you guys, so I believe it's a percentage that has validity, and so I think that it's an appropriate percentage. And so I think that's about all I want to say at this point, is essentially we're adding a category to an existing code. We are not changing the code.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak to this public hearing regarding the ordinance related to accessory structures size limitations? Whoever wants, Mark, why don't you come on up first? So name and address, and then please state what your points are.
Hi, Mark Schaefer, 2106 Evergreen Lane. And I also represent, as alderperson, Mr. Giles' district. I wanted to speak in support of the ordinance modification on size limits. It makes sense for an area where we have larger lots, areas that are zoned for larger lots. And at the same time, it aligns with the Plan Commission's 2.25% rule, where the outbuilding size is commensurate with the lot size. Typically, you buy a bigger lot, you may have a bigger house, you may expect a bigger garage, let's call it. It meets the needs and expectations of somebody with a larger lot. Whether it's a family with a car hobby or boats, garden tractors, golf carts, all of the things that we find in our larger properties in our semi-rural Delafield. And I wanted to see for myself too what this would look like. So I looked around the area and I did find a whole bunch of buildings, garages that were larger than the 1,200 square feet. There's a couple of 1,500 square foot garages on Evergreen Lane. And these are RL1 1 acre properties. Bay Point Lane, there's an 1,800 square foot, a 2,200 square foot, a 1,300 square foot. And done properly, set back properly, designed properly, they did not look at all out of place in these areas. So I think it's a reasonable request to expand that 2.25% rule to the larger properties. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am. So name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Alice Katayama, 1551 Weber Court, which is near the property that Mr. Giles would like to use. And I've reviewed his proposal, and I'm here to speak in support of it. My house is actually right across the street from where the proposed structure would be. And I think the way Mr. Giles has suggested rewriting the ordinance would add more rationality and consistency to the various subsections. So right now, subsection D doesn't specify a standard. It just says upon satisfaction of the other standards, but doesn't say anything about square feet. Whereas in this proposal, you have a standard of 2.25%, which is consistent with the earlier subsections of the rule. So I think this would make it easier for the city to administer and easier to defend and more rational and more consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes.
Hi, Jay Warner, 2029 Evergreen Lane. I'll just keep it short and sweet. Just first off, I just don't understand why larger lots are kind of penalized in this case. That would be kind of my first thought. The second thought would be, if you look at subsection B, you can have a 700, and actually that's subsection A. You could have a 600 square foot accessory building on a lot of 10,000. That's actually 6%. If you had a 10,001 foot lot, you could do 720, that's 7.2%. So, having something that is much lower than those limits at 2.25%, makes tons of sense. So I'm in support of it as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this public hearing? All right, fair enough. Public hearing 1 is now closed. So we have another public hearing, text amendments to Chapter 52, City of Delafield zoning ordinance related to the conditional use provisions for automobile service stations. Would anybody wish to speak to public hearing number 2? Going once? Seeing none, public hearing is now, number 2 is now closed. Is there any citizens' comments for any items other than the consent agenda? So anything else that's on our agenda at all, or anything else at all? Okay, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, discussion and possible action for the following items. The first is DLT 0811999 in 14 W29542 Gulf Road. This is owner Welshire Farms LLC. The applicant is requesting extraterritorial final plat approval for development of Welshire Farm Addition Number 1 subdivision. Amy, would you like to
Sure.
give us approval of that? I don't know if is the applicant in the audience? Yes, sir. If you'd like to come up and just introduce yourself if there's any questions. Just name and address, please.
Yeah, Ryan Fritsch with Newman Developments, N27W24025, Paul Court, Pewaukee.
Okay, so this property has been brought up in the past. The applicant did come in with a preliminary plat. So it is unusual from what you're used to seeing. It's in the town of Delafield. The city of Delafield has extraterritorial plat jurisdiction within a mile and a half. On this particular plat, because there is Pewaukee, the jurisdiction is shared between the city of Delafield has a portion and Pewaukee has another portion. So the line on the screen with the blue hatch line is the furthest extent of where city has extraterritorial authority, which happens to be this phase. So they received a preliminary plat for the entire acreage. They've broken it down into phases. They're submitting the final plat that includes all of the city's extraterritorial area. So this would probably be the last time you'll see this particular development. If you're out in the field, you can see that they have started grading. But essentially this area, which I'll show on the screen, has many small single-family lots. And then there's a few larger lots. Those will be developed as condominium-type developments with multifamily at 4 units per acre. So that's what you can expect out of the larger lots. None of the streets directly front on a city street, and the development's about a half a mile from the city boundaries. I did reach out and send the plat to the Lake Country Fire Department, and they'll be reviewing it for safe accessibility and other requirements, and share their concerns and comments more directly with the town. Other than that, I would recommend that this get sent to council for approval. They do need to clean up the signature page. Ryan, I don't know if you didn't see the staff report, you'll want to take a look at it. Before it goes to council, you'll need to just change the mayor's name, the way that it's written, and then make sure there's a plan commission and council block.
No problem.
I'll make a motion to approve the extraterritorial plot, DE LT 0811999.
Second.
Any discussion?
Subject to the signatures.
I'll amend my motion, subject to the signatures, the City of Delafield Mayor.
Second.
Timothy A. Iker.
All right, any discussion now? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Okay, item 10A is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10B, 715 Milwaukee Street, owner William Brown, applicant Colby Construction, site plan and appearance approval to construct an addition to the commercial building accommodating Billy Brown Insurance Agency. Is the applicant here for this? Please come up, sir, and introduce yourself, and while Amy gives us an overview.
Pete Freitmeyer, Colby Construction, 709 Milwaukee Street.
You can turn on the other one.
You got it right there.
Yeah, just push that.
Noel Weber, also 709 Milwaukee Street.
Thank you.
Okay. So Billy Brown Insurance is located north of Milwaukee Street between Canal and Lake Street. It is in the CBD1 downtown district. So they really don't have much for setback area or parking restrictions. Right now on the property, the western building is the insurance building, and then he has a nice garage storage type structure, and then a small shed behind that storage structure. The applicant is proposing to add on to the rear of the insurance building for one more office. If you look through the pictures in the packet, you'll see a patio with seats. That will go away. They're not going to be constructing a new patio. The addition will go over that. And then they just need to slightly modify the walkway. It really won't be noticeable. They are not proposing any additional landscaping or exterior lighting. There is some vegetation along the north lot line, the west lot line, and then some plantings to the east of the addition as well. But they don't really have anything around the building. They're not required to get a business plan of operation because they're really not changing the operations at all. The existing employee will use that office space, is the way I understand it. They do have 3 parking spots on the property, even though they're not required to have parking.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed site plan as presented.
Second.
Any discussions or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Okay, you are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, item 10C, DLC 0783983, 1131 Mariner Drive, owner Nagawicca Yacht Club. Applicant Herb Rasmussen requesting feedback and a conceptual presentation and action to schedule a public hearing, if necessary, to amend the conditional use permit for Nagawicca Lake Yacht Club to accommodate a new boathouse. Do we have someone from there? Thank you. Come on up, please.
Herb Rasmussen, 3098 Stonebridge Isle.
Thanks, Herb. What do we have, Amy?
Okay. So the yacht club is on the east side of Nagawicca Lake. It is just north of the Nagawaki Park. And it is zoned residential RL2, and it is subject to a conditional use permit for the yacht club use. The yacht club is proposing to construct they're proposing to remove an existing shed. Let me see if it's on, I'll go back to the aerial photo. Close to the north lot line and construct a boathouse in its place. And then they will continue to keep the clubhouse, a large pavilion structure, and another shed. And then they have parking, significant amount of parking on the property. So that boathouse normally would require an amendment to the conditional use permit, but going back to the 2008 conditional use permit, there is a condition in there that says that any material change, alteration, or addition to the use requires plan commission approval, and if considered substantial, a public hearing is required. And then they define substantial as improvements costing more than $150,000. So the anticipated cost of the boathouse is about $24,000. So the way I'm interpreting the condition, they would actually not need to amend the conditional use. But I did want to bring it to Plan Commission this month in case they do, because if they do, then we would have to schedule that hearing for November. They do need to go to Lake Welfare in November and come back to Plan Commission no matter what, because that's the step process. And the neighbors have been notified for that Lake Welfare Committee meeting. The boathouse will match the materials, the siding and roofing of the existing clubhouse, which will be LP smart siding in a light tan color. And then they are going to put a tan composite board rooftop deck with cable railings on top. The boathouse will be 396 square feet and less than 10 feet in overall height, which complies with the code. There's one white overhead door with no window openings. I'm trying to find those plans here. Hold on. This is probably a good, we'll go with this rendering. So they'll have one overhead door with no window openings, and then the south elevation will include a service door and window, and then there will not be any windows or doors on the east or north elevations. And they are not proposing any electrical exterior lighting or hose bibs with this proposal. And then if you look back at the site plan, they are proposing a swale along the north side of the boathouse, which will drain into a rain garden, which has been designed by an engineer that is part of the yacht club. And the rain garden will include 6 plant species. They're required to include 5. And the plants will all be grasses or sedges, which, per the code, need to make up at least 40% of the makeup, so they will meet that. The only comment I would have as you move forward, coming for the formal submittal, it looks like you probably are proposing way too many plants.
Do what?
Too many plants. So it says that there's six plants proposed with 110 plantings of each. So I would think that would mean like 600 and some plantings, when you probably need 100 and some total. So you could probably do 20 plantings of each species and you'd be fine.
I'll review that. I would expect them to be planted about 18 inches on the center.
Yeah. So that's, I think you can scale way back. There's probably a typo error or something. So other than that, just looking for feedback before he goes to Lake Welfare and whether or not you feel a public hearing is required for a conditional use amendment.
I don't see any reason for a public hearing based on your definition, Amy.
I concur.
Yep,
I agree.
I agree.
And I'd say it's going to see plenty of light of day with the lake welfare
Lake welfare, right.
exposure as well, so.
And I don't see issues with, and come to Lake Welfare, let the rest of the community decide, but I don't see any issues with what I see.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice looking.
The plantings especially, that'll be the question. Looks like you did a good job with that.
That was some pretty positive, short feedback. I don't know if you want to hang around for anything
We're not
negative.
used to that,
but
yeah.
Is there anything else we want to share? Or that you think you might need?
No?
I think we're on the right track, Herb.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck with the rest of the steps, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. See you next month.
All right, item D, 523 Milwaukee Street, owner Hendricks Commercial Properties, applicant Annie Kearns, requesting site plan and appearance approval to provide outdoor seating to Blue Collar Coffee. Is the applicant here? Please come up.
Carly Bloom, 523 Milwaukee Street.
Welcome. So what do we have, Amy?
Okay. So, assuming you all know where Blue Collar Coffee is downtown, there is a deck-type structure in the northwest corner of the building, and Blue Collar Coffee would like to use that area for outdoor seating, and they'll propose approximately 7 tables with 2 chairs at each table. Sometimes those do change the makeup. There are no parking requirements here, so we don't need to consider the extended area of use for parking purposes. The one issue that came up about maybe a year ago, when there was another tenant in a different space of this building that was going to come in, a brewery, they never did lease the space. But one of the conditions Plan Commission put on there was that the dumpster that's located in the southwest corner of the parking lot needed to be removed or screened and closed prior to them opening. So I did reach out to TJ with Hendricks. I'm not sure if you've spoken to him at all, but he did agree that they're going to move forward real quickly here. And now that the equipment storage is being relocated from the 705 Genesee Street development, that they'll probably just relocate this dumpster across the street where they were storing equipment. So they need to come in for Plan Commission approval for that. But once they get through that, they can remove this dumpster, and then I'm recommending that that be done before Blue Collar Coffee use the outdoor seating area. it is a violation of the city's code, the way the dumpster is placed and not enclosed right now. So other than that, they don't need to amend their business plan of operation either. They're just providing additional seating for customers, but the operations remain the same. So I do recommend approval, subject to that dumpster being properly enclosed or relocated. And then if there's any beer, wine, or liquor sales, do you have any beer, wine, or liquor?
We do have a liquor license, but we're aware that we need signage and to be regulating that there isn't allowed to be liquor on the patio.
Yeah, so they either can't serve outside of the building, or they need to come in and amend their liquor license to expand the premise area, which that's a condition of approval.
Well, I think it's a good use. I think it's a good utilization of that property and the Bark River, which the city spent a lot of money restoring. I know Park and Rec has tried to hide that dumpster for quite some time. And the juniper bushes that we put on there are not doing the job. So, yeah. So I will make a motion to approve the proposed site plan with the condition that the existing dumpster shall be either enclosed prior to outdoor seating or moved to an alternate site across the street.
Well, that's where I think they're proposing it.
Okay. Regardless, it needs to be enclosed.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, other than the fact that the river's beautiful and people want to sit there and look at it?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? All right, let's move a dumpster and sit outside and watch the river while we drink coffee. Thank you. Okay, item E, DLC 0792101, 421 St. John's Road. Owner applicant Joseph and Kimberly Eldridge. Applicant is proposing site plan and appearance approval to construct a privacy fence. Is the applicant here? Please come up and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Joe and Kim Eldridge, 421 St. John's Road.
We need the microphone, unfortunately.
Sorry. Joe and Kim Eldridge, 421 St. John's Road. I have a couple.
Yeah.
Our fence manufacturer had some concepts that are a little easier to follow that came after the submittal package went back out. Amy suggested maybe we just print them. Sorry, there's only 7 copies, but.
Okay, all right, well, why don't you give us an overview first, Amy?
Okay. Here, I'll give you that one. Okay, so this property is 9,690 square feet inside. In size. It's located in the newly developed Beacon Hill subdivision. The property does already exist, or currently has, the single-family residence attached garage, and they did install a plunge pool with a patio surround. And I do have some pictures of that as well. The applicant is proposing to construct a 4-foot-tall privacy fence surrounding the existing pool and patio area. And the fence will be placed on a patio that's raised slightly from natural grade, approximately 1.5 to 2 feet, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. That's a guess. The pool it's a small pool, just as a plunge pool, 7.8 feet by 13.8 feet deep. And it does connect to the attached garage. And then on the north lot line, there's utility and stormwater easements, so it's outside of that. And it wraps around the north lot line, and then it comes along the west property line, and then wraps back into the house area. The fenced area is bigger than the pool area at 29 feet by 35 feet. And you'll see, I'm gonna go to the picture, or here. So you can see that the pool, I don't know if I have a good enough picture here.
The new document might help.
Yeah, you have, okay, hold on, your pictures are better. I don't know if you can see on the screen, there's a tarp, that's where the plunge pool is. So the patio is significantly larger than the plunge pool, and I think the patio itself goes pretty close to the west lot line, and then the fence would go right alongside or on top of the patio. So that's pretty close to the line. The applicants did state that they got homeowners association approval, and they will, they can put plants on the inside of the fence area, but there is no room to put it on the outside of the fence area. So, plan commission approval is required because the fence is less than 50% open. It's located within the required 10-foot side yard setback on the west lot line, and it's greater than 4 feet in height when you measure to the natural grade, which is the bottom of the patio, to the top of the fence. And so when making a decision, plan commission is required to consider promoting public health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare of the citizens of the city, enhance the values of property throughout the city, ensure that they're preventing deterioration of the general appearance of building structures, landscaping, and open areas, encourage and promote an efficient use of land, assure that site development takes into account the efficient provision of vehicular and pedestrian access, public utilities, stormwater management facilities, and other elements of public infrastructure and public facilities, and encourage and promote acceptability, attractiveness, cohesiveness, and compatibility of new buildings, development, remodeling, and additions, and preserve and protect the appearance of and aesthetic quality of the city. And so I have been talking to the applicants about Beacon Hill and how it was developed. This is a smaller lot subdivision than what the city is used to, and that really wasn't the intention to create private spaces throughout it. It could really create a precedent. So I did add a paragraph in here about in order to encourage the cohesive and compatible development and protect the aesthetic quality of the city, the Plan Commission could consider eliminating or reducing the area of privacy to the greatest extent possible. And I'll let the applicants speak on this because you'll see two different versions of fencing in the packet. One having 2-inch slats throughout, I think, the fence area, and then one having privacy along most of the height with 2 open panels on top and 1 open panel on the bottom. And then additionally to that, tonight they are giving you a packet with another revision. I'll let them explain those modifications. But, you know, with that, it's important that, you know, if the privacy was a necessity at the time of construction, then it's always helpful to come through the permitting process ahead of time, because now you're in a position where the pool is there and the patio is there, and Plan Commission has to work around something that exists instead of doing it beforehand. Because had they come in ahead of time, Plan Commission could have made some decisions about reducing the size of the patio to get off of the lot line, potentially requiring modifications to the height of the patio itself in order to reduce the overall height of the fence, and then to reduce that privacy area. And then there's always the issue of setting a precedent for other projects in Beacon Hill, and it's my understanding we may have another applicant coming in to propose another privacy fence in this subdivision in the near future. So those are my comments. I do say that the recommendation is up to the Plan Commission's discretion. However, if you do approve the fence, we do want written documentation of the homeowners association approval. And then we also do need a survey. The ordinance requires that a survey be provided for any fence before issuing a building permit.
I have a question, Amy, that you can, I'm sure, answer. So there's the 50% open issue, and then there's, the setback of the fence is not in accordance with the city setback, is that correct?
Right, so any fence that doesn't meet the regular offset of the district, which in this case is 10 feet, does require Plan Commission approval. They drew the line on the survey, but I think it's right up against the lot line, maybe a foot or two.
On the west side, we're a foot off.
On the west side.
Okay.
To the north, there's
They
quite a
do
bit
meet,
more room.
right, they meet the other setbacks, so we're just working with the west side, and then the 50% open, and then the height.
Okay. You had brought up precedent, and that was the question I had, you know, and my question was, you're looking forward, and I was gonna ask the question backward, because I'm relatively new, but how has the city dealt with precedent in the past?
If you recall, we had, it's about, how far away is it? Block and a half away. We had an applicant in, just to the north of here, closer to Highway C, that was looking for a completely opaque fence. I don't know, forget the height.
6 feet.
Yeah, so that was 6 feet, but, and that was one that we rejected. And they have a 50% open fence. It looks more like a picket fence, and, it looks great. And some of our concern was the aesthetics of it and how it creates walls around an area, right? I mean, and that was a slightly bigger lot than this, but, similar, so looking backwards as far as precedent, we haven't set a lot of them.
Okay.
The one that I can remember in recent history as far as permitting a fence that was close to the lot line just for height, and it was still 50% open, was there's somebody close to I-94, just north of I-94, where their neighbor has
Dogs.
routinely rotates through like rescue German Shepherd dogs that were
I recall that one.
rather, they're not all really that friendly, and he's got little kids, and so to keep the dogs out, that was something that was approved. I don't recall a lot of other
Okay.
situations where we've circumvented made exceptions to the rules.
The precedent here is a concern. It's not personal to your project. It's just, once you set a precedent, then you're dealing with qualitative factors every time somebody comes forward. So I have a concern with that. And the only other question I have is on the getting approval from the homeowners association, which makes sense. But it also seems to me that if you're asking for approval for something that's going to be closer to your neighbor than they would have expected when they bought and built their house, that you might need approval from that neighbor as well.
Amy, is there a state law governing pools that you have to have a fence around them?
A pool?
Yeah.
They do have to have a fence, right? Correct, Scott?
That's not correct. It's
Okay,
a
never
municipal, it's a municipal issue. It's not a state issue, it's not a county issue, it's a municipal
I
issue.
wonder what insurance company would go along with that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But the
Because
city
it's a
requires
liability.
a fence, right?
The city does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised that, oh, go ahead, Laura.
Go
I'm
ahead.
s-
No, go.
I was just surprised
I'm
to see
waiting.
that the homeowners association allows pools, because with pools come fences. And we all know when this subdivision was developed, it was to be small, open lots. So I'm very
And if-
surprised to hear that.
And if privacy was desired, that's where your trees come in and your plantings. And that wasn't the intent, the aesthetic intent of this development, is to have, they are posted size lots, but they are obviously very small lots.
I actually went out to the site, and I got to speak with both of the owners. And the fencing that they want, they only want the privacy screening on this northern edge because it faces parking or where you would pull in with your cars. One thing for headlights, another one for privacy, because anybody driving down this road is going to see you in the pool also. So it's kind of like for a privacy thing, which I totally understand. And they are the second house east of the path. So anybody on the path, that's why they want to extend it on the west side a little bit, that privacy, is because anybody on the path can see somebody in the pool. And I looked at it and I thought, well, there's not a house directly in line with the fencing. I feel that any kind of pool needs to have a fence around it just for liability and safety. I don't feel that what they're asking is unreasonable, and their neighbor to the west of them, it doesn't have a problem with it.
And do you know that? I don't know. Is that?
So our neighbor to the west of us, we talked with her in.
You have a microphone in front of you.
There you go.
Hit the bar. There you go.
Our neighbor to the west of us, we talked with her in the planning before the first shovel went in the ground. She knew that we were planning to do this pool, and we had talked with the developer about the pool before we ever did the pool. And our neighbor is in favor, and we talked about plantings, between on our lot line, and she actually didn't want us to plant because she wants to plan her own landscaping. And I said, okay, you know, now we ended up with having to do this kind of like retaining to get it lifted up in order to meet the grade, because there is a utility easement right behind us, and then there's a drainage easement right behind us. So we couldn't let the grade kind of run to those easements. We didn't have the room. And so we had to lift things up. And she said, well, the wall is beautiful. She said, I don't want you to plant. And so we have plantings, we have mulch along the west side. And then to the north side, there's not room for us to even do privacy trees because that's the electrical easement. The whole electrical easement, or, you know, the majority of the electrical easement is on our lot. It's not shared between that intersection of those lots. It's all on our lot. And we talked and worked with We Energies trying to kind of move that back. Initially, they had put their power lines through our lot, and those had to be moved because they were actually through our lot. And they said that when they were there.
What she means is they were not in the easement, they were installed outside of
lot,
their prescribed
yeah.
easement.
And they said that their equipment was miscalibrated. And so they had to move their utility lines back to the easement. And so it left us with absolutely no yard because that box is, the easement is in our lot. So, you know, had all of these things kind of been known initially when we ordered and planned for a pool and had approval for a pool, you know, we would have thought differently. But, you know, here we are, and we're really penned in, and, you know, our big concern is that street is straight out the patio, as you can see in that one photograph. And people drive by, and this neighborhood is creating, you know, a lot of interest. And people drive by and slow down, and I've seen people walk off the path and look in windows. It's creating a lot of interest, and we just want privacy when we're standing there. I mean, me in particular, in a swimsuit, to the street. You know, it's not to block our neighbors. We love all of our neighbors, and one of them, Kitty Corner, also has a pool. The same pool. Our pools were delivered on the same truck, and she's going to be creating a fence. You know, and that was something that we knew before we ever even ordered this pool, you know, that we were asking for this, and the developer seemed to say it was okay, and we knew that the city allowed fences. We just don't want to be completely visible to the street and to the path. I mean, if it were just neighbors and we were blocked, we'd be fine, because we really like all of our neighbors and are very comfortable. But for the general public to be standing in a swimsuit, I'm not. And I shared with Amy, when I was a new college grad working as a nurse, I had a situation where I had a stalker, and the police got involved, and it was really scary for me. And so this whole thing kind of is emotional for me, the thought of standing there in a swimsuit with people, strangers, being able to peer through. So it's more for me than it even is for my husband.
Does the city require a permit to put an in-ground pool in?
Yes.
And we received a permit.
Okay.
And I appreciate your concerns about privacy and safety, but a less than 10,000 square foot lot with the houses that are going up there, it is obvious that is not a private neighborhood. And that is obvious to anybody that buys a lot there, for better or for worse. They are postage stamp sized lots, and it's just not compatible to privacy.
I think the real problem comes in is when the association approves that they can have a pool, because a pool has to have a fence.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to have 100% privacy.
It doesn't have to, yeah.
Right, but
So that's the issue
either
here.
way,
The issue is the privacy. We all understand you gotta
yeah.
have a fence.
gotta
And had
have
we
a
not
fence.
built out as far, you could have achieved privacy with plantings,
Yeah.
which is what we're encouraging.
Yeah, well, the city requires a fence around.
For the pool, yes. But it doesn't have to be, it has to be, it has to be open.
Right.
Yeah.
And I approved the compliant fence at the time of pool permit.
Am I okay to talk?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I don't know all the protocol.
Yeah, if you don't mind, actually, I just want to take a step back. If you don't mind just explaining the changes, because the information you provided tonight is not in the meeting packet.
Well, first of all, I apologize if it's different. I thought it was just a more clear view. It's a same rendition where it's what's labeled on there as privacy fence is actually maybe 70% solid and 30% see-through, because there's open rungs, 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. And then the sections labeled screening have 2-inch visibility openings between each slat. And I didn't do the math on the exact fraction. It's probably a little less than 50% in fairness. So,
I think that what's different and, or not represented in the packet, so that the openness it's the area. So the amount of area that's private versus open, I don't think is represented in the packet materials. So I don't know if you can see,
On
a
each
portion
dock.
of the fence is open and a portion of it's completely private. So on the north lot line, 22 feet of 28.5 feet would be private. And on the west lot line, 16 of 35 feet would be private.
And the rest is compliant?
I don't think it's compliant. It's not 50% open. It has, openings.
It's like 25%, 2-inch opening and 4-inch slats.
Couldn't the privacy issue be dealt with a compliant 50% fence with arborvitae plantings, something like that?
We don't have any room, we can't plant in the easement.
well, it could. We just need cooperation from the westerly neighbors, because as soon as they grew a little bit, they'd be partially on their lot line. We offered to do that. They said, let's talk about it in spring when we're doing phase 2 of our landscaping. So it's a very positive relationship.
But on the north, that's in the We Energies easement. That whole easement is in our yard, so we can't plant trees.
Unless with hotlining it, they allow us to go away from their lines, but within their easement, which we're willing to do. Can I ask or clarify? Two quick things, and I'm not trying to be fussy at all, and I know typically when things are going your way, you talk less. But the 7 by 13 dimension, that's length times width, just in case anyone's concerned, it's not 13 feet deep. It's 5 feet deep, it's 7 by 13. And then it sounds like we're talking about 2 potential precedents or non-compliant issues, right? One is 50% visibility, and the second is being not within the building envelope or 10 feet off the lot line, right? So those, I think, are maybe separate issues. In one, there's no precedent for, which is the less than 50%, but the other, there's multiple precedents for, which is building closer to the lot line.
Yeah, the difficult part is that the structure's there already. You know,
Patio's there.
And, you know, to say that, okay, cut 9 feet off your patio, that's not what you want to have happen, obviously.
We're really, really hoping that that's not how that
You
part
know,
goes. Yeah,
but that's the whole-
transparency.
But, you know, going forward, that's maybe a learning lesson, but that's the reason these guidelines are in place. You know, if we had to allow a fence that had openings, I would say at this point, we need to hit the 50% mark at least. We got to see some level of compliance at the very least in that part. And, you know, I'm sure that whoever you're getting the fence through would be able to accommodate that, you know.
One concern that I had about that, and this is a legitimate concern, I worry that become a ladder and people can get over the fence very easily.
A 4-foot high fence, 6 feet high, not to scare you, but any adult can, you know, that's not that high.
I'm more worried about children, you know.
You know,
That's true with any pool in the city.
yeah.
Well, if you went vertical instead of horizontal slots, then you
Yeah.
don't have the ladder.
Oh.
You can move them vertical, which
Right.
then you don't have that issue.
There's only so much you can do, right?
Is there any context from the homeowners association? They just said, hey, no problem at all?
They said if the city approves it, they approve it, but then we actually have direct approval from the HOA and the developer, who are still one and the same because it's a new project. So, yeah, they said yes, subject to city approval and following all the rules.
I just wonder if there's any other, if you've looked at all of the other alternatives. I mean, it just, I'm struggling, and I'm not trying to take something away from your enjoyment of the property, but the precedent, and it's not in compliance, if there's some other way you can solve this problem. I don't know.
Understood.
Yeah, I'm more into the 50% openings, knowing that there's another one coming, and then we are setting precedents. And if there is, if you could communicate with We Energies and you have approval at your neighbor and you can get plantings in there, it's just, what we went through to approve this whole subdivision and the theme of it. And knowing there's more coming, I do struggle with this plan.
It's such a small portion of our whole thing, the majority of our yard is open to our neighbors. And actually, the neighbors to the south are really good friends of ours. And we're not looking to block off from our neighbors at all. It's just that one corner, we want to not be visible, less than clothed.
And could you do planter boxes inside your fenced area with something that, I think there's alternatives here so that we aren't precedent setting. Benches with planters behind them or something to get some foliage up there.
I think my question becomes, is this all or nothing?
I think so. I think if you're gonna go private, you go private. If we want 50%, we should go 50%.
No, I'm sorry. I respecting the visibility. The two issues are like the visibility and then the placement of the western run that is a foot off the lot line, which there's fences a foot off the lot line all over Delafield,
Sure.
but they're 50% visible.
Right.
I think to answer your question, they have the ability to approve one without the other.
Oh,
It's up
thank
to
you.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I'd rather see you go with vertical fencing, 50% openings around the entire structure. And if you can, like Dan had suggested, if you can do some blocking with plantings on the inside of the fencing, now you're at least, you're gaining, in the right direction that way.
Yep, I would agree with that.
There may be some type of shade structure or something you can do.
Yeah.
We would really like to stay with our ordinance of the 50% open.
Thanks.
So is it
Well, I'll make a motion to not approve the proposal as presented and have the applicants take in good faith the suggestions they've had from the commission and see what else you can come up with.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? Amy, is there something that would give them approval for a 50% open fence based on the layout that they have? Is there a way to fabricate
Alternative way of looking at the motion, again, it's up to you, is you could approve a fence 1 foot off the west lot line that shall be 50% open, and that the survey be required and homeowners association written documentation be provided, if that is your prerogative.
Is that what where you're steering it, Scott, or?
Well, I'm a lot more concerned with the open fence than the foot. The foot concerns me as well, but, we're dealing with, you build something that makes it, you can't be compliant, and that's troublesome, but I think it's casted concrete, no pun intended. So, I think if I was gonna be flexible, that's what I would do, but I'm still, it's difficult because I'm not saying you didn't build this all in good faith, but people can buy lots and do things and then come later and ask for permission and ask for exceptions and have valid reasons, and we're stuck saying, well, we've got, codes and precedent and have said no to people, so it's challenging.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? Is there a way to do that without us being pushed out another month? I understand and respect your schedules. I'm just trying to understand what the options are
Weren't we already approved when we applied for the,
for a compliant fence, which
Right.
this is not.
no, but I mean,
Well,
if we
the
do a
motion
compliant
could be
fence?
changed to.
Yeah,
what
so
Amy
I'm
was
curious
saying.
if you're interested in changing
will.
the motion to say it's to allow a fence on the 1 foot off the west side that's 50% open. I don't know if you're interested in doing that. Otherwise, we are your motion is less actionable for them to come back with another suggestion for a different approval. So I don't know what would be different about that. So I guess I'm debating your motion already,
Yeah.
knowing that you have a second, but.
No, I agree with what you're saying, you know. I would rather see the motion to tailor in a solution as opposed to a complete stop.
So I have a question. With the feedback received tonight, is there a fence you can propose right now that the Plan Commission can consider and approve?
If we could get our western lot line and go 50% visibility of the same manufacturer, look and feel with horizontal treads, but truly 50% visibility, I feel like at this point, we call that a win.
And that would be 6 feet tall?
No, just 4.
4 feet? Okay, I just want to clarify.
4 feet plus the patio.
Plus the, yeah.
Plus the,
So the net is five and
Five and a half.
Tim, do we need to resolve the motion on the table first?
Amend it.
Yeah, if you'd care to amend the motion or you just vote it down.
I'll amend it.
Okay.
I'll amend the motion to approve the fence that is 4 feet, is 50% clarity, see-through, whatever the terminology is. And to be on the setback as proposed by the applicants.
The second approve that amendment? That was you, Matt.
Yeah. Yes, I'll approve it.
So any discussion on that, clarity?
What about the fence along the north property
Yeah.
line?
We're talking 50%.
It meets the 50% open is the way I'm hearing it.
Yes,
It meets the
50%
setback.
open.
Okay.
That's what I was going to clarify too. It's 50% open around all fencing,
The entire fence.
everywhere.
If that's what we have to do.
Does the motion clarify that?
That is the intent. That is the motion.
Okay.
Any more discussion or clarification? Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? All right, I think we've got clear direction. You can talk with, I think Scott's got it, so you can work with him. All right, thanks for working with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Item F, DLC 0791092, 179 Hickory Drive, owner Walter and Karen Kane, applicant Amy Schmidt, Superior Fence and Rail of Milwaukee. Applicant is requesting site plan and appearance approval to construct a privacy fence. Is the applicant here? Okay, please come up. You know, if it's in our ordinance, we end up dealing with it sooner or later. Could I have your name and address, please? There you go.
Walter Kane, 179 Hickory Drive in Delafield, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Karen Kane, 179 Hickory Drive, Delafield.
Okay, why don't we have Amy kick it off?
Okay, so this is a 1-acre property located in the Valley Road subdivision, which is just west of the new St. John's Estate subdivision. The applicant has a single-family home and attached garage. The property to the east of them has a single-family home and attached garage and an in-ground pool with an open fence. The applicants are proposing to construct a 6-foot-tall fence along the east lot line, which is 229 feet in length. The fence would also be 229 feet in length. The lot's actually a little bit longer than that. And the purpose behind that is to prevent the noise and activity related to the outdoor pool and living spaces on the adjacent property from creeping into their space. The fence would consist of cedar and be board-on-board style, and it would be located 3 feet from the lot line. So again, Plan Commission approval is required because the fence is 6 feet in height instead of 4. It's less than 50% open and located within the required 20-foot side yard being proposed at 3 feet. I won't go over all of the standards. Hopefully you remember them from the last agenda item. And same kind of thing, in order to encourage the cohesive and compatible development, Plan Commission should consider at least reducing the area of privacy to the area along the pool patio space only. It appears that based on the lot size and pictures that they submitted, that the rest of the fence could be 4 feet in height, 50% open, and meet the offset requirement. There are a couple pictures in the packet, if you haven't looked at those.
So there's a part that they want to continue to have at 6 feet, Amy? But
So-
the balance would be 4?
Well, they want to have a 6-foot tall fence along the entire 229 feet. I'm just suggesting if the purpose is to screen and prevent the noise from the pool activity, that at a minimum, it could be limited to that area. I don't know that any of it has to be 6 feet in height.
Yeah, I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
Walter and Karen, could you describe why you're putting up why you're requesting this fence? Oh, there you go. And I had the pleasure of being out there today as well.
I went out
So
there, too.
we've been residents at this location for, it'll be 18 years this coming April. And we're not fence people, but there is a monster pool house that's been built adjacent to the property with an adjacent greenhouse. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but they throw off all sorts of light pollution. And the pool house is being used as an additional living space by the homeowners. And in that, there is appears to be a bedroom in there, and with no window coverings, which gives us the pleasure of some unsightly scenery, various states of undress, evening, morning, afternoon. There's TVs inside. You saw the television on the outside of the building, which is kind of their lounge area, and which is on well into the night. Again, throwing off additional light pollution, noise pollution, things of that matter. In the privacy impact of somebody living in the back of that pool house, and the line of sight onto the rear of our house is just unsettling, quite frankly. It's got a line of sight to every bathroom in the back of our house, master bedroom, et cetera, et cetera. Our 3-season room, and then into our family room as well. So we think the fence would fit nicely within a row of arborvitaes along that 229-foot row. It is proposed to be 3 feet off the lot line, which sort of makes sense. It's going to create extra work for me because I've spent a lot of time trying to landscape that line along there to block some of this out, and it's just intolerable is what it is. And, like I said, we've been there for 17-plus years and done just fine there, but this has really had an undue impact upon our property, our privacy, and just our general well-being in that home. So the fence seemed to be the logical solution or remedy to this particular circumstance rather than moving or something else. I mean, we've been here for a long time and intend to stay here. So that's really the purpose of the fence. We're newbies to this, so after hearing the previous conversation, I hear it sounds like there's going to be some hurdles in this. So, but that's where we stand.
Would you be open to a 4-foot fence with the arborvitae? Because
It's not going to do it.
You don't think so?
No.
You'd have to come
No,
out.
you got to experience this. You really do.
Okay, well then, that was the second question, although before we get into the second comment I'm going to have, the arborvitaes I've seen around my property are beautiful, and they're 8-10 feet tall, and you can't see through them. But I do want to go back to that point you raised about the activity going on there. Let's take it all at face value. It seems to me that that's the root cause of your problem, and to fix the root cause of that problem by, building a 6-foot fence that the city doesn't allow. To me, and this is probably not, I don't know how you'll feel about this, the city has nuisance statutes, noise, light, and I don't know if and I'm not trying to create a civil war between you and your neighbor, but I think that if it says you describe that approach, I think is part of the root cause of fixing this, and then you could have a 4-foot fence and arborvitae and.
I'm not certain I agree with that.
How many times have you called the police, Roger and Karen?
Probably most recently this summer, once. That was for a trash fire that was a big bonfire with furniture and, God knows plastic and styrofoam in there. And it's just, that's not what we signed up for in this community experience.
Did the police solve that problem?
There's probably three
Police came,
times.
But there's still more, the items they were burning and were told not to have all new items of the same type are sitting there. And we have a picture of that as well. We can show.
So I do see two issues here. One is the accessory use as, I was over there today. You can see a mattress on the floor. TVs. Scott, I don't know if you've had to deal with this before.
Just that accessory building cannot be used for a place for sleeping. It can't be a bedroom,
It has been, and it is.
and it can't. So I'll have to get involved with that. It's probably not a nuisance because we define a nuisance as a public nuisance. So it'd have to be not impacting just the neighbor. It would have to be more than that. But we do have light standards. We do have noise standards. Can you get by with a 6-foot-high fence for not the entire length?
Hadn't thought about that. I think one of the things, and to Scott's point, our arborvitaes are very mature on the east side there. They're probably 20-footers, like many arborvitaes down at the bottom. They're clipped from the deer over the years, and but the upper portion, they're bulbous and they're beautiful. In the back property, there are some pine trees back there that could also serve to tuck the fence in underneath those particular pine trees. And so a lot of this fence, and it's just on the east side, is going to be largely blended in with that landscaping. The open part towards the pool that you can see there, they have put up arborvitaes several years ago, but they haven't taken, and they haven't done the screening effect that they probably were intended for. I've tried to do some landscaping in front of that just to kind of line it out and everything. So I spent a lot of time in my yard, but back to your point, I think that fence would fit in nicely, and we've talked to our other neighbors who have said, yeah, they're totally okay with it.
And we intend on doing some additional landscaping so that we like the natural look. We love our yard. This has been, a real problem in us having to resort to a fence. So we wanted to do something that.
You gotta get closer to the microphone or bend it down.
We want to do something that is aesthetically pleasing and would continue to landscape around it so that the fence really blends in with the landscaping that is there and that we hope to add to. But we would really like to block off what we see every day, all day long. And if we can, if we can do this with the fence and have it look nice, we're hoping that that can provide some break from this, some peace of mind for our family.
Means we end up staying as opposed to a more draconian alternative.
Right. It's 4 years of this, and we've never had an issue like this prior to with the years that we've lived here.
I remember we had a off the sanctuary, there was a neighbor there that was having a problem, and we allowed a solid, tall fence. I believe it was a 6-foot-high fence along there.
8. It was tall. I think it was 8.
Yeah, it was a real tall
It's gonna
fence,
be-
but that was long, again, long-term years was a problem.
And that was landscaping that was, that over repeated number of years never took
Right.
place.
Right.
So that was a builder commitment that fell through based on just what nature was not allowing to happen.
Right.
There is no HOA in our neighborhood that's sunsetted, I believe. I'm correct in saying that. And I don't think we'd have any other neighbor objections. There are other small fences in the adjacent area. There's a tennis court in a adjacent property that has fencing around it. It's not 6 feet for sure, and then there are security fences adjacent to several of the homes from the garage out to a portion of the yard, that are clearly 7-footers or higher as well that we've seen in the neighborhood. So, including the house next door.
The drawing in our packet was a little confusing. So you're saying 3 feet off the property line. How far off the property line is their fence? How much room are we going to have between fences?
3 feet.
Oh, boy.
Nobody ever consulted us when the pool went in, when the pool house went in, and this hideous greenhouse thing went in. Nothing.
It's not a pool house, it's a living structure. It's an apartment building.
When did those go in?
Pool went in 2020. Pool house started in '21. Took them better part of 2 years to finish it. And somewhere along in there as well, and I think I called Matt to have him come take a look and clean up the unsightly property.
Were those all?
And then the greenhouse went up somewhere 22, 23, something like that.
Did they pull permits for all those, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, empathy, sympathy. I'm struggling with this, it seems to me that if we go ahead with this, we almost have to have on the record our notes of why we're doing it. And so that somebody else who comes in and can meet the standard of abusive neighbors, we can do the same thing for. But otherwise, that whole precedent again, I don't know what other observations other people have.
Do you plan to maintain between the proposed fence and the property line? Do you plan to mow it?
Probably just mulch it behind there. There'd be no reason to maintain it. I can assure you there's little to no maintenance on the other side of the fence that's there now. So I'd throw mulch in there and clean it up spring and fall, for sure. Our struggle is 18 years.
Not a problem.
Not a problem until the last 4. And there's a diminished value to the property because of it, and now to our privacy as well.
So if I want to dig in and find another precedent here, I don't know if I've got a better memory or just been on this long enough. But so there was a house along, I think it was along Milwaukee Street, that was a tear down and a rebuild, where the grade of the new house was, and the house was much bigger. Ended up in a situation where people had been there for a long time, and all of a sudden, this person's kitchen and like where they're doing their dishes and their prep dinette area is like in their living room. You know what I mean? So the house was configured differently, and we did permit a 6-foot privacy fence between the houses because of new construction changed something that was a fine status quo, decades long prior to that, based on just, I don't know what changed about the building plan or whatever, or if it was just never thought of, but all of a sudden these people had been there for a long time are like, we're just sitting here watching TV and they're looking over our shoulders while they're doing dishes, and so it's not too dissimilar to this where there's some new construction or something new that ended up with an intrudence that wasn't there before, maybe wasn't contemplated and hasn't been taken care of with what's going on. at first glance, I have to admit that, you know, I don't know what the length of the fence was as proposed. It seems longer than the problem, let me put it that way, right? I mean,
We could truncate the fence at the north end back to the property and maintain it from basically where the pool ends and up until, through to where the arborvitaes are.
I mean, just from a practical standpoint, from just a taste standpoint, I think that eliminates the egregious part of this situation and makes the longer the fences are, the more after a couple of years, they're going to be, like not straight anymore. But anyway, I'm weighing in that I think that there might be a way to document this like has been documented like in my head from this other example, because I remember them because we don't do it very much. Right. I get the gist of what the situation is.
So how far past the pool are you looking at possibly, if you did shorten the length of the fence up, would you feel it's appropriate for you?
Well, in my mind, we haven't talked about this, but I would think we could take it from, it would probably cut about half the fence out of it.
If you went to like their concrete part of their pool patio?
It would be pool patio to the north end up to their, essentially, to be effective, it would have to be up to where their patio is in the back.
The FT, 229 FT feet,
Yes.
would it go to like between the F and the T, kind of?
I'm not following you.
Okay,
Yeah.
right here would be the north
Roughly
end?
there, up until the back of their house would probably be the remedy.
Where those arborvitaes are?
Yes.
To here?
Yeah, that could be, that could do it.
So it's mostly the pool area.
That would probably be, if it was even with the back of their house, which I would prefer, because then it would extend into the line of arborvitaes, and it would be more appealing than having arborvitae space fence,
Yeah, okay.
It would blend in better. That would probably take, that's got to be half of that length taken out of there.
But you're confident that that would give you the peace of mind and
It would block.
the screening that you're looking for?
It would screen out
The problem area.
all of that pool house, living space nonsense,
But it's still a problem that this structure is being used as an apartment, it sounds.
Yeah, I think that has to be dealt with. And I could live with the 6-foot privacy fence for those limits with, like Scott has said, some justification in the minutes, I guess, or in our approval, so that we can look back in the minutes and say, this is why we did it, because of the precedent setting. Because then we could get a lot of other people coming in saying, I don't like my neighbors, I want a 6-foot high fence. I'm not saying that would happen, but we have to guard against that too.
Yeah, I don't think people are jealous of your situation, saying this is a great way to get a fence.
Right.
So,
Right.
But yeah, and if there's some notes as far as supplementing it with landscaping to grow into this, to make it organic.
Yeah.
Because this is, anyway, I think that would be a good contingency to put on here, that
So what's the adjustment to the fence? If we were to have a motion, what's the specific dimensions?
So a solid 6-foot fence, not to exceed 120 feet?
Or from the rear of the neighbor's house, a line projecting out from the rear of the neighbor's house to the side lot line, north to the north edge of the pool concrete.
that's easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the length would be, yeah.
And we'd just have Superior come back out and measure that and confirm it, whatever that distance is, and go from there.
If that's okay.
Yeah, all right.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the 6-foot privacy fence, which would start at the the back edge of the neighbor's house traveling north, correct, north?
Yes.
And to the extent of the neighbor's patio, right?
Concrete
Back,
pool
To the back of the
back
pool.
of the pool.
Pool patio, yes.
Yes.
Because they have, you know, there's also the patio that adjoins to the house and everything.
And to make sure you supplement that with appropriate, any landscaping needs to make it,
We get to put
make
more
it look
trees in
good.
and stuff.
Would you?
I'm good with that.
Scott's got it, because you're going to be dealing with him for the
Yeah.
permit.
I wrote it
Okay,
down.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, other than the
Is
fact
there-
that this is a
Is there any
situation?
way to augment with, I mean, I know we're not going to get into all the details shared, but due to exceptional circumstances without defining them, why we did this?
That's captured in the.
It's
I
captured in
mean,
the minutes.
Oh,
these-
okay, you're
This
right.
is,
Part of the minutes?
this is archived on video as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Okay.
these things don't go away.
Okay.
Some people want them to.
And you're here for 20 years.
But two, I mean, just to add to the dialogue, this is a situation that was imposed on a property owner, not one that was self-inflicted based on oversights as far as what
Right.
their lot
Right.
looked like or their dimensions or
Yep.
what they want out of life versus what was put in their way of enjoyment their property,
That's a good distinction.
you know? All right, anything else?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right.
Scott
Scott.
will follow up with you.
I'll issue you a simple permit.
Okay.
But Scott's going to check on the neighbor's accessory use
Yes.
as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Next item up is item G, DLC 0807985022, 3660 Kettle Court East, owner Pine Brush LLC. John Coots, MSI General. Applicant is requesting site plan appearance approval to modify landscaping that was previously approved on the property. I see we have an applicant. Please introduce yourself.
Mike Bratz, MSI General, West 215 East, Wisconsin Ave, Nashotah, Wisconsin.
Okay, Amy.
Okay, thank you for your patience. So this property is on the south side of Kettle Court East. The applicant did obtain approval in 2023 for an addition that resulted in a total building size of about 85,000 square feet. The building is used for manufacturing of brushes. They would like to remove, well, I think I might have to stand corrected here. They have some vegetation between the parking lot and the stormwater facility that's in, next to the road. And some of that vegetation has been dying over the last several years. It was planted, it's kind of a sloped area, correct, Mike?
It's pretty steep.
So it hasn't survived, and some of the vegetation has been removed. I did include an image from Google Earth in the packet, which you're seeing some nice, healthy vegetation. Mike did send me a picture that shows what it looks like today. So a lot of that's already been removed because it has died. And did you say you're not removing the rest of this vegetation?
No, actually, we removed it because it's overgrown. And we're coming in to ask if we can relocate some vegetation closer to the property line or closer to the road instead of replanting it on the steep slope.
Okay, so they would be removing that vegetation, and then they would be planting 2 beds, mostly of just grasses and low-lying shrubs. So you're not gonna have the tree growth that you used to have. There would be these 2 bed areas. So typically, we like to see screening between the parking lot and the road. With that said, I will say this is Kettle Court East, which is a pretty hidden industrial park area, so this is up to your discretion.
Why aren't we planting trees in place of taking them down?
The trees died before we were on site.
No, but you're planting 2 additional beds with brushes. Why? So you're putting in additional greenery. Why are you not planting trees, I guess is my question. Replace what you're taking down.
What we took down was just shrubs at this point. I wasn't aware of any trees when I was on site. So I know that picture's from 2019, but
Yeah,
wasn't aware of it.
would the owner be willing, or could they plant like 3 or 4 trees along the road to create a tree line along the road? Is there room for that, or does it slope down?
We were looking to match the new plantings and beds that were installed with the addition, so that we could probably add a couple trees within those beds that would match the new landscaping that is with the addition.
Great.
If that would work.
Are they going to be off the road a few feet at least?
Correct. It's,
You don't want it too close to the road.
I believe it's 16 feet, and if you zoomed in on that PDF from American Landscape, he might have a dimension on there.
Their lot is several feet off of the physical road.
It's hard to see that perpendicular line, Amy. I don't know if you can zoom in, but I believe it's 16 feet.
Yeah, I don't see a measurement here. Oh, yeah, you do, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
16 feet.
So it's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Okay, I'll motion to approve the revised planning as displayed this evening and in our packet, with the addition of 3 to 4 trees in the new planting beds.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions? All right. You're approved.
Thank you.
Mike, I would just ask if you can send me a plan with the 3
Updated.
trees, and then I'll put that in the file.
Yeah, we'll have to revamp the 2 beds that can hold the 2 different, or maybe 2 different species of trees in there.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
All right, item H, DLC 0807985021, 3875 Kettle Court East. Applicant John Barker requesting site plan appearance approval to modify landscaping and architecture as previously approved on the property. All right, Amy.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Wait, name and address, please, John.
John Barker, 3875 Kettle Court East, Delafield, Wisconsin.
Thank you. What do we have, Amy?
Okay, so another Kettle Court East property. Applicant received approval in 2023 for a storage building, you may remember, on the northeast side of the property. With that storage building, there was some landscaping that was proposed and required to be met, and then he did submit some colored renderings of what the building would look like, which I did include in the packet. So he did modify the landscape plan. Rather than planting, hold on here. Rather than planting 7 crabapples on the west side of the building, he relocated 4 crabapples on the east side of the building, and then did plant 4 crabapples on the west side. There are 5 crabapples on the west side of the building, 4 crabapples on the east side of the building, and then there are 3 crabapples on the north side that are still there, that were approved and planted in the spot. That
Actually,
was
5 and 5. There's like 5 on the east, 5 on the west, and 3 on the front.
Yeah, I only could see 4 on the east,
yeah.
but I know you
I
did
know, I
say
dug
that
them.
5. And then the applicant increased the number of plants around the base of the building. So the original approval didn't show any plants on the north side of the building. There really weren't any plants shown between the retaining walls. And then on the south side of the building, there were some plantings, but he added a short retaining wall and then added additional plantings. And then you can see on the north side of the basin, there's 45 juniper trees that were planted. That was not part of the original plan. If you look at the pictures of the property, some of those are dying or dead, but again, they weren't part of the original approval. So I guess that's his prerogative, whether or not he wants to.
There's 5 out of the 47 that are there that are showing brown, but I'll probably reload, I'll pull them and
Yeah,
kind of replace.
or you could
what-
take them out too. Maybe they're a little tight, I don't know.
Yeah, they're a nice fence.
And then there were, the original approved plan had 3 tiered retaining walls, and he ended up putting in 2 retaining walls. They're the same type of material as the other walls you can see on the front of the building. And then the architectural design of the structure, it just has a little less brown than what was originally approved. And then the original approved plans showed that silver ledge going across like the whole north side of the building. and extending a little bit further on the east and west sides. That's been broken up and it's not on the north side at all. And then it looks like, I think the windows are a little bit smaller than what was approved. That is a little bit hard to tell, but you can see more, it appears that there are more panels of brown than the plans that were approved. So with that, the landscape plan results in more vegetation than what was originally approved, although relocated. And then the architectural modifications are relatively minor in nature for an accessory structure. The site is really visible mostly from I-94 at such a distance, it's pretty hard to see the changes anyway. So I do recommend approval as presented.
I'll move to approve the revised landscape plan and architectural design as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? All right, passes.
Thank you. Have a great.
Brief one, John.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Item I, Nagawicca Heights subdivision on Nagawicca Road East. Lot owners of Nagawicca Heights, applicant Alex Spheris, requesting site plan and appearance approval to modify landscape plan that was previously approved for the subdivision. Good evening. Name and addresses, please.
Oh, I'm Matt Spheris, N9W31083 Concord Court, Delafield.
And John Spears, S1W33857 Abbott's Road, Conomowoc.
Evening, gentlemen. Amy, what do we have?
Okay, so the subdivision was approved. They're working through final closure on their end of it. They would like their letter of credit returned as soon as possible. However, in doing all of the as-built reviews, it was determined that they did not comply with the original approved landscape plan. There's a couple, I didn't go through all of the changes on the actual landscaping because it is a little bit different. After getting on site, they took the concept plans, realized that there were some grading issues, easement issues, owner preferences that have adjusted what they ended up planting. And there were two benches, if you remember. There's three benches on the originally approved site plan. One of them on the south side was not put in at all. There is still a bench at the end of this little landscape. You kind of walk through the landscaping and there is a bench at the end of that. I believe it's steel instead of the original plans showed a wooden bench. And then there was going to be another bench in this area that is no longer there. And then on the north side of the property, there's also a bench that is missing. So, hold on, I think I might have that a little bit wrong. So there was a seating bench between lots 2 and 3 on the north side that they did not construct. And then they did put a bench on the south side, but it was going to be on the north side of the stormwater facility, and they planted it, or installed it on the south side of the facility. So there's actually two benches pretty close to each other, right? Okay, so does that make sense? Should I just confuse everybody? And then as far as the landscaping, they only had to, they removed just a few trees and planted hundreds of inches of trees, so they certainly don't need to address mitigation. However, when, if you remember when the plan came in, a lot owner on the south end of the subdivision was concerned about screening, and so they did have, they had 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plants that they were going to plant on the south side of lots 20 and 21, and they are missing 5 of the white firs. In fact, they're missing white firs in a couple of locations, so I can only assume that your landscaper probably couldn't find white firs at the time, because they did plant the other 5 trees. The ones behind lot 20 are in a slightly different location. I talked to the developers today. They're going to go get those planted next week. And place them in the appropriate area so that they do screen from that adjacent property. One of the concerns of the adjacent neighbor was that the approved plans showed 8-foot tall trees, and it's my understanding that you will be planting trees that will not be 8 feet in height, or did plant trees not 8 feet in height?
They will be 8 feet,
Okay, the new ones will be, but the ones that were planted are a little bit shorter,
6 feet.
6 feet? As a staff member, I would prefer them to keep the 6-foot tall trees that are established and in the ground, rather than taking them out and planting 8-foot
Yes.
trees. And then the other notable area, I guess, is there was 3 white firs also in the northeast corner of the development that are not there at all, so it's a little bit more of an opening. That's where there's a grass path that leads into the bridle path area. With that being said, that is adjacent to the open lands that will eventually become some type of development, I would assume. Right now, it's agriculturally used, so I'm not sure that that's a critical area, but I just wanted to point that out.
And if I could give you an update, basically, any of the dead trees that were, the trees or bushes have already been replaced. And the benches that were shown on our original plan, our landscape firm was not aware of the grades, easements, or utilities. Almost impossible to put them where he put them. So that's why we did not put them there. And we did use a black steel fence at the end of the alley of trees overlooking the pond for aesthetic reasons, and we also wanted a steel bench instead of wood one for the maintenance. And then we also added a bronze plaque on the bench in memory of Joe Geeson per his widow's request. And as Amy said in her report, we planted 200 evergreens instead of 107, so we actually planted 94 more evergreens on the entire parcel. Some of the neighbors said that we did not plant the 5 evergreens per the original plan adjacent to their lot, backing up to lots 20 and 21. And it was our thinking originally, it's such a dense woods between the 2 properties, we thought 5 trees aren't going to make that much difference, so we planted them elsewhere. However, in order to satisfy the neighbors and to adhere to our original plan, we've already hired our landscaper to plant them next week. And they'll all be 8-footers. And he also said he has to look for white firs because he doesn't know if he can find the white firs right now. So therefore, I'm requesting the Plan Commission to approve our landscape plan, and then we will submit a new updated plan, Amy, to you.
I'll have to say that's a pretty quick response to something I just found out about this morning as far as missing 5 trees, and I agree with you. But those of us that remember that there's a person that was rather vocal about that as an issue, so thanks for accommodating that, and thanks for the work you did on the bridle path. That all looks really good. And I understand benches are more of an amenity for I think the people that are in the subdivision, so if they're not shaking fingers at you, I think you're in good shape.
Not at all.
Is getting white firs going to be a problem?
He's going to look and see what he can find. If not, we can talk and see what substitute trees are available.
I'm just wondering, does Plan Commission want to require the planting of 5 evergreens, 8 feet in height?
Give the white firs a swing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See if you can't.
If we can get them, we'll get them.
I bet they're around.
Yeah, I would think if you absolutely can't, there'll be a suitable replacement that could, you could come up with, even if I would be okay, talking to staff here to make sure that they're okay with it.
All right, we will do that.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve the landscape plan as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, on to item 11, comprehensive plan zoning and ordinance revision. 11A, discussion and action and request of Terry Giles, property owner at 1607 Weber Court, to amend the text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance and municipal code regarding the accessory structure size limitations of Section 52-110. Please come up, Mr. Giles. How should we proceed, Amy?
Okay, so I just want to add, I think you guys understand the proposal. At the last meeting, Plan Commission did ask that I included the table that includes the neighboring communities and their provisions. And then you had asked for the City of Pewaukee and Village of Pewaukee requirements. So the City of Pewaukee did not have a specific size limitation that I could find, but you're limited to one accessory structure on less than 2.5 acres and 2 on 2.5 acres or more. And then I would assume that their code has like either building footprint or floor area ratio provisions that need to be met. And then the Village of Pewaukee has a maximum size of 500 square feet and you get one structure. So that's fairly restrictive. And then the other communities are listed in here, Town of Genesee, Town of Delafield, Village of Heartland, Village of Oconomowoc Lake, Village of Summit, City of Oconomowoc, and Village of Mukwonago. So that's a pretty good cross-section of communities. And then I just want to, we talked about this at last month's meeting, but the applicant's draft ordinance did include changes to subsection 2C and D, and I don't believe any changes are required to subsection C. So the idea was that subsections A, B, and C provide the threshold. So A is you're allowed, the structures can't exceed 600 square feet on lots less than 10,000 square feet in size. B is the structures can't exceed 720 square feet on lots between 10,000 and 32,000 square feet. And then on lots greater than 32,000 square feet, you're limited to 2.25% up to a maximum of 1,200 square feet. And the idea there is, I think somebody had mentioned, you know, that you're getting off scale with 6% versus 2%. The idea is on real small lots, you get a 2-car garage. It's meant to allow something greater on the smaller lots in order to give what, you know, a lot of people would like a 2-car garage. And then as they get a little bit bigger, you get a 3-car garage, and then a little bit bigger, you're up to a 1,200 square feet is a 4-car garage. And then letter D is saying that Plan Commission can make exceptions under certain circumstances. And that's where it was larger than 1,200 square feet on lots greater than 3 acres, where the applicant is proposing larger than 1,200 square feet, not exceeding 2.25% on lots greater than 53,333 square feet. I actually think if you recommend approval of the applicant's request, I still think you're limiting yourself to, no, it's right, I'm sorry. So they would be allowed more than 1,200 square feet, not exceeding 2.25% on lots greater than 53,333 square feet if they go to Plan Commission. And then somebody earlier during the public hearing said there are no standards. The standards are in letter E. If you have a structure greater than 720 square feet, you have to come to Plan Commission for all kinds of, to meet certain standards. And then as a reminder, Plan Commission, I mean, all of the previous minutes from when the city created the ordinance, the newer ordinance are provided in the packet, and we have talked about them in the past. But largely that 3-acre limitation was used because that's typically when you get outside of the subdivision setting and get into the more agricultural properties where you can have agricultural animals. And up to this point, Plan Commission has not been favorable to the applicant's proposal.
I have some observations. I didn't know if we wanted to have Mr. Giles present or.
Yeah, would you like to kick things off, or you already have, or would you like to just field questions?
I'd like to say a few things.
Okay.
So could you turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I would like to say a few things. And I don't know whether it's worthwhile or not, but I have an email from Phil Schuman, who agrees with the proposal. I have another email from Jim and Judy Milton, who also agree with the proposal, and I'd be happy to read them into the minutes if you would like. All of the individuals.
Being asked to speak a little closer to the mic.
All of the individuals are close to the property in question. The thing that I think I wanted to emphasize is that you have a 1,200 square foot limitation that covers property ranging from 32,000 square feet to 130,680 square feet, almost 4 times larger. And so what I'm proposing is that you have a new category or an additional category. You have this very large gap between this 32,000 and over 130,000 square feet. That's 4 times more. You have this big gap. And what I'm proposing is that there should be another category in there. And since we know that 2.25% of the 1,200 square feet is 53,333, that's where I said that there should be a break. And anything beyond that in size, which is approximately 1 1/3 acre, would be controlled by the 2.25%. If you don't have another category, there is nothing in the code that is currently covered by the 2.25%. Nothing. Every one of them has a category that cuts it off before it gets to 2.25%. So essentially, the 2.25 could be eliminated from the code because it doesn't mean anything. But I think it's an appropriate number. I think you spent time thinking about it. It has exceeded, it was previously in the code before you changed it. And I think it's a good number, but I think it should have meaning. It should have something to do with the code, and that's why I'm proposing that anything over 53,333 square feet be a percent, 2.25%, but it also has to be approved by you guys. I mean, you're approving anything over 720 square feet. So it isn't like that you're going to have to do something additional that you're not already doing. So you still have control.
I just want to make sure that everybody's understanding this correctly. They're approving everything over 720 square feet for architectural review. And then the 2.25% is the limitation, up to a maximum of 1,200 square foot is the highest number for any size lot. That's really how once you exceed 2.25% once 2.25% goes over 1,200 square feet, it's capped, it's meant to be a cap on any lot. And then Plan Commission can grant an exception if you have at least 3 acres. That's how the code is written today. Does the Plan Commission understand that? I just want to make sure.
I do. In fact, my comments are related specifically to that. So I'll just share them and from my perspective. So I agree with you completely. First, last meeting, I think what we came up with was prudent. I said that. I agree with it. But I do think that category of 32,000 to 130, broad, and 1,200 at the 32, 1,200 at the 130. If I had a do-over and it was just me, I'd probably have something bigger on the far end of it. And I mentioned that last week. But I think we're getting off track here, and this is my perspective, and I could see why you would get there, Mr. Giles. You're talking about the 2.25% as if that's the end in mind. And the way I have gone through this process since I've been here, that was a means, maybe an awkward one. The end was the actual square footage of this group saying, what we're trying to evaluate is a pastoral setting in the community and allow people to take advantage of their property depending upon how big it is. And that's why we came up with these absolute numbers. Upon second review, if it was just me, if I was the emperor, I'd have a little bit more wiggle room in that area. It wouldn't be anywhere near as large as what you're asking for. But I think if you keep holding on to the 2.25%, that's what we weren't solving for that. It came from some historical perspective. What we were solving for, and my colleagues can agree or disagree, were for these values of 600 and 720 and 1,200. And we ended up with a category that's very broad. At some point, I'd be happy to go take a look at that again. But going back to the 2.5 and say, well, we'll just change that number and put 2.5, you're coming up with buildings that are significantly larger than what the intent was of, in my opinion, of this body.
Well, if you took a 2-acre property, that's 87,120 square feet. 2.25 is 1,960 square feet.
Yep.
That's not a huge building. And so you're saying that the 1,200 square feet is acceptable on a property as small as 32,000, but you can't use a 1,900 square foot property on one that is 130,000? I don't understand, but, you know, I don't want to argue with you. And I'm willing to accept whatever you guys decide. And to be honest with you, I'd like to bring my hobby back home. My wife is more important than my hobby. So I won't build. It's real simple. I have all kinds of property in Waukesha. I own 72,000 square feet in Waukesha. I don't need another property, but I want it because I want to stay home. And that's what this is all about. But in the meantime, I believe that other individuals that own 2 acres of property should have the ability to build a larger building than the 1,200 square feet. And I believe that you should have the control to say, I don't think that looks good on that property. And that should be the end of it. And if you don't think that what I'm proposing to build looks good on that property, then that should be the end of it. And I agree with that. But that's about all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, you made your, you know, your situation very, very clear. And, you know, the idea of the scaling, just so I'll reiterate what I've said this before, but the idea of scaling based on a percentage basis, there's some good reason to that. But there's also something that applies to this maximum that Scott mentioned of a 1,200-foot max and a 720 and a 600. And that has to deal with the types of categories that the individual subdivisions are divided up into, where you've got the quarter-acre lots, the half-acre lots, 1-acre lots, and RE2 and, you know, R1, and then RE3 and higher. So there's city planning that's going into what the actual build-out's going to look like. There's some uniformity to it. There's some character you can build into it. But when you're in that 1 to 2 acre category of lots, that's RE2. I mean, that's your RE1, RE2, and we are lumping different size lots of varying sizes in together with a maximum size structure, but it's worked, and how to deal with an exception is tricky, and you know, I'm not sure we've got the solution, because if we do start to impose discretion to apply these different ranges as being suggested, we need a list of categories for how we're going to objectively measure all these applicants. Like what defines too big or what defines looks right. You know, we can agree that your building's beautiful, and then also say it doesn't fit into the ordinance. And how do we objectively qualify what a good-looking building is, so that Scott can enforce it, we can enforce it? It's a lot to ask, and I don't think we have the right text here to make all those, have those decisions, have something guide us to those decisions.
Maybe you should, I know that Mark presented a list of buildings that exceed 1,200 square feet. Maybe you should go look at them and see what these larger buildings are on properties that are smaller than the one that I propose, and get a feel for it, rather than do it in real life rather than just in concept.
All right, I understand. I mean, we're, a lot of what Amy put in here as far as seeing what other communities have done and have had on the books for a long time is part of that exercise. And I don't know if anybody saw something from a different community that jumped out at them as, this is a good idea and we should apply this and this solves this problem, but I don't know if anyone has any feedback in the other ordinances that are on that table, or?
I thought they were all similar to ours, if I understood it, and I was going to ask Amy offline. One looked more liberal, but if I understood it right, and the rest of them were at or below our standard. The one that appeared more liberal to me, I think, was Summit. Am I interpreting or following the math on that, Amy, properly?
Summits is a little bit different in that you can't exceed 60% of the living area of your home. So that would result in actually a far more restrictive standard
Okay.
applied on the
So it's of
lot,
the home.
on his lot. However, you can go to Plan Commission for approval to go beyond that number.
Okay.
And then they look at the same things that, you know, that you're looking at, architectural compatibility and neighborhood compatibility. Some ordinances, I would say probably more typically in unincorporated areas where you do have larger lots, more rural settings, do have a flat like 2% limitation or 3% limitation. But the cities and villages tend to get more restrictive.
Well, let me say something that maybe you'll understand me a little better. I understand that I could take this building and attach it to the existing garage or tack it to the existing house, and it would be acceptable. I could make it bigger than what I'm proposing if I'd attach it to the existing garage or I attach it to the existing house. I'm not willing to do that because it would look bad. It would look terrible. We'd have this conglomeration of buildings sitting over in the corner of this property, this huge piece of property, and that would look terrible. But I'm willing not to build instead of ruining the property.
I understand that point, but I mean, if we want to dive into where we do have criteria, when we are approving buildings over 720, they have to match the architectural character and style of the existing residence. And what you're suggesting by saying attaching it to it is going to have this odd mismatched combination, it kind of leads me to believe that if we go through the approval process, given this ordinance change, we'd be looking for some consistency of the architecture and the style of the house to match the accessory structure you're putting up, and you're kind of insinuating that doesn't happen, that doesn't exist.
I understand. The point I'm making, though, is not architecture, size.
Right, okay.
And it's not the architecture that you are disapproving. It's the size.
Yeah, the point is we're, you know, we went into this saying no because of the size that you're proposing there. You know, I kind of struggled with the 53,333. That's just, to me, I'm a numbers guy based on my occupation. It's an odd start point there.
That's 1,200 divided by 2.25%.
I realize that. And then it's actually a mute category then, when you really look at the way it's currently written.
Approximately 1.3 acres.
Yeah, somebody can still come in here and say, hey, I'd like to put up I've got 5 acres, I'd like to put up a 1,500 square foot building. They still would have to come here to look and see about if approval would be appropriate or not. There's still architectural standards that still needs to come into play on this. We've done it over the years with any kind of accessory buildings. You know, I know you said you don't want to attach it to your current garage or your house. You know, personally, I would say that would be an avenue to look at. You would get the structure you're looking for, and it then doesn't have to go through this change of what we've just changed.
It was proposed in meetings that I had with Amy, meetings that I had with Tim. We discussed that, discussed it with Scott. It was proposed, but I said, I'm not going to do that. I just won't do it because it would be an unattractive construction, and you shouldn't let me do it. And so I won't do that. Either I'm going to do what is a quality construction, is going to look nice, it's going to enhance the area, it's going to improve the quality, or I'm not going to do it. And so, I understand that I'm asking you to change a code that you just changed. And I understand that that's a difficult thing to do. But try not to think of it as for me. I'm not the only guy that has 2-acre lots in the community. And that you're not setting a precedence just for me. You're creating a code that I think is an improvement and will also satisfy other people.
I'll propose a motion if it's not premature.
No, it's fine.
Okay. I'll propose that we deny amending text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance of the municipal code regarding accessory structure, Section 52-110.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So discussion. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Who said nay?
Nay.
How many is that?
I
Raise your
said nay.
hands. Okay, so it's Ed and Laura. Okay, motion to deny is passed, so. Does this go to council?
Yeah, it's up to Terry. If you want to send it through council, council can go against Plan Commission's recommendation.
The last thing I want to do is to create enemies and make people upset. And that if you guys don't feel that this is the right thing to do, it would be wrong for me to force it on you. I won't do that.
I want to say, Terry, there's no hard feelings here at all.
I don't have any hard feelings.
You've been
because
commendable.
You guys got to do what you think are best.
Oh, you've been.
And I do too. And so I thank you for the fact that you put up with me for as many times as you have.
Well, you've been good.
And, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
All right. Might be our last topic for the night. 11B, discussion action to request to amend the text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance of the municipal code regarding provisions related to automobile service stations, which are currently allowed as conditional use in Section 52-142 as initiated by Plan Commission. Okay, Amy?
Okay, so we talked about this at last month's meeting, changing the conditional use provisions for automobile service stations and auto washes to eliminate a few districts. So last month, we talked about eliminating them from the downtown districts, B1 and B5. But there are automobile repair shops in CBD1 and, there's a gas station in CBD1, there's auto repair shops in CBD2 and maybe CBD1, it doesn't matter. But they're there, so I had recommended that the code could be written to allow existing automobile service stations and then not allow new ones. The attorney did not like that language because really it's a legal nonconforming use, and he felt that it should be treated as a legal nonconforming use. So instead, at this time, perhaps we'll come in with additional language, but probably the highest priority is to remove them from the B5 and B1 districts anyway. That's how the provision started, or the discussion started. So the new text that's in the draft ordinance, which, by the way, I gave you a hard copy of because I put the wrong document in the packet. I have no idea why. So you did not see this ordinance. It says that automobile service stations and auto washes in the CBD1, CBD2, B2, B3, B4, B6, and M1 districts, provided no gasoline pump or other accessory equipment shall be closer than 30 feet to the street right-of-way line. So that means out of all of the business, it used to just say in any business district, out of all the business districts, I eliminated B1, B5, and I did eliminate CBD3 and CBD4 in the draft ordinance, because CBD4 is just that little stretch coming into downtown that seems as if you want that to be a transitional zone. And then there are none in CBD3, and that's the downtown campus setting where like Delafield Hotel is. So I believe this is at least a temporary fix, and we can discuss downtown further if there's an interest in eliminating new uses.
Yeah, getting into the discussion, because I don't think we want to see a proliferation of gas stations like up the street here. But in the meantime, saying they're not allowed makes those non-conforming uses. And then if they want to do improvements on them, they start going through different, if Tom's Auto Body or Gary's Auto or whoever wanted to renovate their buildings, we'd be dealing with different issues with them as a non-conforming use. And so I decided we can look at that at a different date, and we can kill the problems of possibly having gas stations in areas where they don't, other places they don't belong, where we don't have existing gas stations. That's the intent of the modification. When this is the biggest fish to fry, we'll go after this again, but right now there's other battles to be won. That make sense?
Agree.
So looking for a motion to pass this.
Motion to recommend Common Council adopt the ordinance as presented by the city planner this evening, which amends section 52-142, parentheses 12, prohibiting automobile service stations and auto washes in the B1 and B5 zoning districts, subject to city attorney review.
I would just add CBD3 and CBD4, because that's not in my staff report. Can you add that, though?
No, including CBD-1 and CBD-2.
Sure.
Allowing.
Yeah, you can,
I could
say
Okay.
that better.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? Okay. That was Matt, right?
Yeah.
Okay, reports of city officials, correspondence, look in the packet. Planner, Amy, anything?
Just a reminder that the meetings are advanced a week in November and December, so Plan Commission is November 20th.
Okay, Scott, what do you got for us?
Nothing to report, but I will do some kind of year-end summary either next month or in December.
Okay,
And if you want to talk about it, we can.
awesome. Okay, seeing no further business, our next meeting is November 20th. Submittal deadline is October 20th. Well,
It's done.
that's done, okay. That's it, we're adjourned. It is, what time is it?